Okay, I'm just gonna analyze a famous game from 1930. I say 1930 with a question mark in my voice because very little details are known on this game. It is believed it was played in Warsaw as a casual game in a cafe, some people say. The player with the white pieces, I'm just going to turn it around so we can see it from the black point of view, was called Glucksberg. And the player with the black pieces was Miguel Najdorf. Moishe, as he then called. Miguel was born in Poland in 1909, I think, and slowly rose up through the ranks of Polish chess players and played in 3 or 4 Olympiads before the Second World War. And when the Second World War broke out, the Chess Olympiad was being played in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and many chess players ended up never going home again. Miguel Najdorf was Jewish, and he didn't go home, and his parents, his daughter, his wife, and the rest of his family all died in the concentration camps. He became an Argentinian citizen, changed his name to Miguel, and slowly rose up through the ranks of the world chess, and is of course famous for the Najdorf opening, uh, Najdorf Sicilian, probably one of the most played Sicilian variations ever since he first came up with it. But yeah, here's the game known as the Polish Immortal. It's beautiful. I I don't want to spoil things, but I'm convinced that if Najdorf had 8 minor pieces, he would have sacrificed 8 minor pieces in this game. Real enthusiasm for giving things away here. Beautiful attack. So we'll just look at what happens. Glucksberg plays d4, f5, the Dutch defense. The Dutch defense looks a bit like the Sicilian, and in a way it's like the Sicilian. It's like saying, okay, you've played d4, you've got good control over e5 and c5, and you've got a decent center. I'm not going to fight for that. I'm going to establish my own strong point on e5 and see where that gets me. Of course, there are dangers associated with the Dutch defence. You are, after all, opening up the diagonal of death. It's there's a weakness that comes with it, but as with all chess openings, there's advantages and disadvantages. Anyway, we'll just see what happens. c4, very normal. Knight f6. I think this is still an acceptable way to play the Dutch defence now. e6, and Najdorf is aiming for what's known as the Stonewall setup. Stonewall, it's named Stonewall because it's very, very difficult to break down. Yeah, these are all kind of standard moves. And d5, and then knight d5, and then pawn c6 are characteristic of the Stonewall formation. You might think, why not swap on e4? Well, on d4, d5 even, bound to get it right eventually. Yeah, you can, but then black would have a fantastic grip on the e4 square and would have got everything he wanted out of the opening if you play c takes d. So it isn't normally played. Yeah, e3 probably wouldn't be played now by a modern master. They'd probably be looking at playing bishop to f4. Put pressure on this point and just get the bishop in the game. This is maybe a bit compliant, but bit of a weak move, but yeah, that's what he chose. And so now these pawns here are the Stonewall, and there is a corresponding set up in the in Queen's Pawn openings, the stonewall formation for the white, where he ends up with pawns on d3, f4, e5, and c3. So here, 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 and here. And that's a very, very difficult to break down formation. It says it's a Queen's Gambit declined semi-Slav defense accelerated move order. Well, it is, but most people who weren't chess.com's thing would call it a Dutch stonewall. Yeah, logical. Okay, both players are finished with their development and yeah, ready to castle, and both players castle. And yeah, really, yeah, I don't think black has any real weak points. Yeah, there's no point in this move. He's maybe thinking that he can play knight to f4 and then knight to g5 and go after what appears to be a weak pawn on e6. You know, it's called the stonewall for a reason. It's very difficult to break down. And white definitely is overambitious in his attempts to break down Najdorf's stonewall. So yeah, okay, he's developing another piece, not moving the same piece twice, and this is an absolutely terrible move. I don't have a cup of tea, so I'm just gonna invite you to find for yourself the move that Najdorf played here. Okay, pause the video if you need to. Najdorf, of course, takes on h2 with check. If the king takes, then the knight comes to g4 and picks up the knight in a beautiful Greek gift, and the king's not going to survive long hanging out there on the H file with the queen and knight coming to attack it. You know, it's not going to survive very long. So he realizes his mistake and just moves the king. But then Najdorf plays the queen to attack the knight on g5 and to allow the queen to come to h5, h4 if the knight moves. So he supports the knight to try and find some defense, but he's in big trouble here. And Najdorf plays the queen to come to h5 with check, and then move the bishop, and then get a very quick mate. Okay, gives his king a square, but opens up another diagonal against the king, and particularly, makes the king is now left without defense effectively. So he moves the queen. He's threatening to play bishop takes pawn, discover check. So now in his brilliant YouTube video on this game, Power Play Chess Daniel King. I'm a big fan. I'm a subscriber. Watch everything he makes. Great player, great personality. Yeah, it's well worth watching him. But sometimes his analysis can be a bit advanced because he is, after all, a grandmaster. But it's not all above my pay grade, to say it that way. But he says there's several ways to win this. And there's some very simple and straightforward plans of just bringing the other pieces in, but Najdorf just gives away a ton of pieces to pin down that king, which doesn't have many places to go. So the first move he makes is bishop g1. So he's threatening to play queen here, check, and yeah. So had he taken with the rook, he wouldn't have survived long, because then after check on h2, Najdorf would have had check on f2, which would be mate. So he takes with the knight to give himself a chance to escape. Okay, that's fair enough. And this move threatens to play pawn, check, and eventually that will give mate. And if he takes with the pawn, the f pawn, I'm just going to stick on the analysis so that we can see all the lines. Yeah, if he plays, you can see how bad it is. Almost 5 plus for black here. But there are a whole bunch of mating threats. Look up this game on chessgames.com yourself. It's called the Polish Immortal there, and take the time to get an engine out and check the mating mating plans that exist here. I'm not going to tell you them all yourself. I believe in making you do some work yourself. Okay, so he takes the pawn, and then obviously he can take with both knights, and he takes with the knight on d7, which also introduces the bishop into the game. He has to take that knight, otherwise it would be mate. So the knight gets taken, and then the king comes to f5 first. Another check, king move is forced, and now the pawn moves to, he threatens to play pawn here, check, check with the rook. He threatens to play bishop here. He's still got some fantastic threats going on. So Glucksberg takes it, but Najdorf obviously feels he's not given away enough pieces yet, and he gives away another, which is just fantastic. And of course, if he plays rook here, king to e3, the rook is going to come. This rook is going to come here. The king comes here, and then the white king is not long for this world. So he takes the bishop, and Najdorf thinks, I've got a minor piece left, I have to just give it away. No, he sacrifices the last knight because it gives white only one choice. He plays knight to e5, and the only choice is to take it, and now we have the beautiful h5 checkmate. A really beautiful game. It's incidentally one of 3 games which are known as the Polish Immortal. But if you look for Glucksberg versus Najdorf on chessgames.com, a fantastic chess database, you'll find it. And as far as I know, it's the only one of the 3 games known as the Polish Immortal, which is called the Polish Immortal on chessgames.com database. So what can we learn from this? Even against weakening defences such as the Dutch defence, I know Simon Williams plays it all the time, and he's a much better chess player, knows more about chess than I've ever known or will ever know, but he plays it all the time, so he thinks it's good, but most people judge it to be weak. And I've had some successes playing the Dutch defence, but I've had a lot of defeats playing the Dutch defence, so I'm calling it weak. But even against a weak defence, careless play will lead to attacks for your opponents. Knight on g5, which never really done anything. The knight's still sitting on g5 doing nothing. 2 pieces got moved twice in that opening by white. The knight which is on g5 and the knight which went from c3 to f2, which now sits on g1. So there's a reason why why these rules of thumb exist. Only move pieces once in the opening. And this is an example of what can happen to you if you break these rules. I had to test my equipment last night, so there is a bonus English video which I will be releasing later where I play 2 games, 10-minute chess. Okay, remember to like, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, write a comment, help me with the algorithm. Yeah, thanks, bye.